I used to think life was simple. Not easy, just simple. You give love, you receive love. You show up, they show up. You stay loyal, they stay loyal. I believe relationships work like the laws of gravity. You pour enough into a person, and eventually, something good comes back. But life doesn't work on fairness. Life works on truth. And the truth is, I was a man who believed love alone could hold a marriage together. I remember mornings more than anything else. Not because they were special, but because they were real. The kind of real you only understand once everything falls apart. I'd wake up before the sun, rubbing the sleep out of my eyes, quietly moving around the room so I wouldn't disturb her. The light would slip through the curtains, soft and slow, touching the edge of our bed before it reached her face. And I'd stop. Every single time. I'd look at her and tell myself, she's my purpose. She's why I'm fighting so hard. It's strange how a man can convince himself he is living a beautiful life, even when he's quietly bleeding inside. Back then, I did everything I thought a good husband should do. Breakfast ready before she got up. Clothes ironed when she rushed for work. Bills paid on time. House maintained. Future planned. I wasn't perfect, but I was present. I showed up. Fully. Completely. And for a long time, I believed that was enough. But people change. Not in loud ways. Not all at once. They change in the quiet, slowly, leaf by leaf. One day, she smiled differently. Another day, she didn't smile at all. Her good morning turned into a nod. Her hand stopped reaching for mine. Little distances started appearing between us, and I told myself it was just stress, just work, just a phase. Men like me, we always find excuses to hold on to love. One evening, I came home after another long shift. My feet hurt, my back ached, but I walked in with the same hope I carried every day. Maybe she'd look up, maybe she'd smile, maybe she'd care. But she didn't even lift her eyes from her phone. No welcome back. No words. Just silence that felt heavier than any argument. And still, I didn't complain. I kept telling myself she just needed time, that she still loved me, that if I tried harder, cared deeper, sacrificed more, everything would fall back into place. Trying harder became my survival. Working overtime, saving money, cutting out friends, forgetting hobbies, building a life that, without realizing it, I was building alone. There was one morning I should have paid attention to. I'd made her favorite breakfast, pancakes with honey, the tea she loved. She looked at it, then at me, and sighed as if I had done something wrong. Why do you try so hard? It's unnecessary. Unnecessary. A word that can break a man's spirit without ever raising a voice. I nodded, pretending it didn't hurt. She grabbed her purse, left without a kiss or a thank you. I sat there staring at the food cooling on her plate. My hands were warm from the tea, but inside I felt cold, like something in me had quietly died. That was the first time a small voice whispered, maybe she doesn't need you anymore. But I buried it. Love makes you blind, and I was blind in the most painful way. The distance grew. The small moments disappeared. Her voice lost its softness. Her eyes didn't search for mine anymore. She became someone whose heart I could no longer read. Then came the night that shifted everything. I was at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills, her new expenses, her new lifestyle, her new needs. I was trying to figure out how to make it all work, how to carry more weight without breaking. She walked in, sighed like I was a burden, and said, "You know, sometimes I wonder where your life is even going. You're always stuck here, doing the same things. It feels like you're not growing." My pen slipped from my hand. She looked at me like I was the reason her world felt small. She didn't realize how much of myself I had given so she could dream bigger. I wanted to defend myself, to tell her how hard I was trying, how much I cared. But the words never came out. They stayed trapped in my chest, behind the walls of a heart that was breaking quietly. That night, lying beside her felt like lying next to a stranger. I stared at the ceiling, wondering when the love disappeared, wondering what I had missed, wondering why the woman I would have died for no longer looked at me like I mattered. In that darkness, I made a silent promise. Tomorrow, I'll try harder. She'll see my worth. I didn't know then that the world I was trying to protect was already burning behind me. The truth was coming. The betrayal was coming. and I was walking straight toward it with my heart wide open. Chapter 1 doesn't end with a weak man. It ends with a loyal one. Too loyal to notice he was losing everything, including himself. Conflict never enters like a storm. It doesn't kick down the door or scream in your face. It slips in quietly, settling into your life like dust in the corners, barely noticeable at first, easy to brush aside. And like a fool desperate to protect the peace, I brushed aside every sign that something was breaking. It started with her eyes. Eyes that once held warmth, interest, softness, now looked at me like I was just another object in the room. Not a husband, not a partner, just background noise she had learned to tune out. One morning, I handed her coffee the way I always did. A small gesture, a routine of love. She didn't even lift her face. She just muttered a dull, not a thank you, not a smile, just a sound that made my heart drop in a way I didn't want to acknowledge. I told myself she was tired, stressed, overwhelmed. I told myself women go through phases. I built excuses to protect the illusion that nothing was wrong. Because the moment I admitted something was changing, I'd have to face the fear that she was changing too. But the truth was simple. She wasn't tired. She was tired of me. Her words sharpened over the days that followed. Where she once encouraged me, she now questioned every part of who I was. Why don't you earn more? Why aren't you more ambitious? Why do you dress like that? Why can't you be like other husbands? Every question felt small when spoken aloud, but inside me, each one cut deep. Each one told me I wasn't enough. Each one planted doubt in places that used to be solid. And the worst part, I believed her. I started fixing myself like I was broken. New clothes, longer hours, business books stacked on my bedside table, motivational speeches playing late into the night. I was trying to reinvent myself into the man she wanted, someone she wouldn't feel embarrassed standing next to. But no matter how much I changed, her disappointment only grew. One evening, I came home with a small bouquet. Just simple flowers. Nothing expensive. Just something to brighten her day. Something to remind her I loved her without needing a reason. She looked at them, then at me, and sighed. Why waste money on useless things? Think before spending. Useless. The word didn't hit fully then. Not the way it eventually would. But the seed was planted. I smiled through the sting. I placed the flowers in a vase. I pretended her words didn't bury themselves inside my chest like a weight I didn't know how to carry. Weeks passed before the shift became undeniable. It was a Saturday night. We were getting ready for a dinner with her friends. She stood in front of the mirror, beautiful, polished, perfect. I walked up behind her and whispered, "You look beautiful." She didn't smile. She didn't blush. She didn't even look at me. She stared at my reflection behind her and said softly, almost casually, "If only you match my energy." My energy, my level, my status. I stood there frozen, watching the distance between us widen in the mirror. And for the first time, I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. That dinner became the first real humiliation. Her friends talked about designer bags, vacations, new cars, luxury dinners, lifestyles I knew she envied. And then one of them joked, "So, when are you upgrading your life? Your husband seems simple." She didn't defend me, didn't correct them, didn't show even a flicker of discomfort. She laughed, a soft laugh, but it cut deeper than any accusation. That's the thing about disrespect. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it hides in laughter. I stayed quiet the entire night, smiling, responding politely, holding my pain like something fragile and dangerous. Inside, something was splintering, something I had depended on for years. The belief that she and I were on the same side. When we got home, she walked ahead of me, heels echoing through the hallway. Without looking back, she muttered, "You need to start doing better. I can't live like this." I looked around the home I worked overtime to pay for. The furniture I saved for. The life I held together piece by piece. And I wondered how it had all become not enough. I wanted to ask her what she really wanted from me. But I already knew the answer. More. She always wanted more. The next morning, she scrolled through Instagram, eyes glued to the lives she wished were hers. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge I was even there. To her, I wasn't a husband. I was a reminder of the life she didn't want. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't losing my wife. I was losing the version of her who once loved me. Her dissatisfaction grew like a shadow over us, thick and heavy, swallowing anything warm that used to exist. And I pretended everything was fine because accepting the truth felt like stepping into a fire I wasn't ready to face. But conflict doesn't disappear. It grows. It builds. It waits. And the day was coming when she would finally say the one word, the word that would burn through everything I believed about love, marriage, and myself. I just didn't know how close I was to hearing her call me useless. There are moments in life that split you open so suddenly, so violently, that you can feel your soul changing shape inside your chest. Moments that divide you into two versions of yourself, the man you were before and whatever is left of you after. This was mine. It happened on an ordinary evening, one of those quiet nights where nothing seems wrong, but everything feels off. No argument, no cold silence, just a thin, unsettling stillness that felt heavier than any fight we'd ever had. I come home earlier than usual. My manager had noticed how worn out I'd been looking and told me to take the rest of the day. He meant well, but he had no idea what was really draining me. It wasn't the job. It wasn't work stress. It was the feeling of slowly fading inside a marriage where my presence had stopped mattering. When I unlocked the door, the apartment felt peaceful in a way that should have comforted me, but didn't. Her shoes were by the entrance. Her purse was on the dining table. Her perfume lingered in the air, faint and familiar. All the signs said she was home, but she wasn't in the living room. I heard her voice coming from the bedroom. Light, airy, almost cheerful. A version of her voice I hadn't heard in so long that for a moment, I stood still just to listen. It wasn't suspicion that pulled me closer. It wasn't doubt. It was something sadder. Hope. The hope that maybe, just maybe, she still had that softness somewhere inside her. The bedroom door was slightly open, enough for her voice to slip through, crystal clear. She was on a call. At first, her tone sounded irritated. Then it shifted into something darker, a bitterness that didn't sound like her at all. Or maybe it did, and I just never wanted to admit it. I was about to knock gently on the door, until I heard the sentence that froze me in place. Sometimes I feel like I married a useless man. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't think. My mind rejected the words instantly. Surely she wasn't talking about me. Surely she didn't mean that. But she kept going, and every word peeled back another layer of the man I thought I was. He has no drive, no ambition. He's just stuck. Honestly, being with him feels like dragging dead weight. Dead weight. The sound of those words hit me like a blow I didn't see coming. I couldn't process it. My brain kept repeating the same phrase. She said it. She really said it. Her friend must have responded with something, because she let out a short, bitter laugh. A laugh that sounded like it had been waiting a long time to escape. I regret marrying him sometimes. I thought he'd grow. I thought he'd become someone. But he's just there, existing. Nothing special. Existing. Nothing special. I stood in the hallway like a man who had suddenly forgotten how to live in his own skin. My hands trembled. My chest tightened. My breath grew thin and shaky, like I'd been punched and couldn't recover. I wasn't crying. Not yet. The pain hadn't reached the surface, but inside me everything was breaking, quietly, mercilessly. I took one step back. Just one. It felt like the floor might crack beneath me. My vision blurred. I felt small in a way I had never felt before. Smaller than her judgment, smaller than her disappointment, smaller than the version of myself she had just destroyed. Every sacrifice I had made, every late night, every whispered hope for our future, every piece of myself I poured into loving her, they all crashed through my mind like a cruel montage. And in a single moment, none of it mattered. Because the woman I loved didn't see me. She didn't understand me. She didn't value me. She judged me. She, my wife, saw me as useless. I stepped away from the door, barely aware of my body moving. My legs felt weak. My chest felt hollow. I walked to the living room and sat down slowly, as if even sitting required strength I no longer had. My hands covered my face. I wasn't hiding from her. I was hiding from the truth. And then, finally a single tear escaped. One tear. Silent. Warm. Unwelcome. It traced down my face like the first drop before a storm. And in that moment, I heard myself whisper something I never thought I'd say. She really thinks I'm useless. The apartment felt colder than ever. The walls felt farther apart. The silence roared. After a minute, or maybe longer, I heard her footsteps coming toward the living room. I wiped my face quickly, desperate to hide the collapse she had unintentionally witnessed. She walked in casually, phone in hand, expression calm and unbothered, as if she hadn't just crushed the last intact part of me. "There you are," she said. "What do you want for dinner?" Dinner. After calling me useless to someone else, she wanted to talk about dinner. Histoire de hair. For the first time, I didn't just look at her, I saw her. I saw the distance, the disappointment, the quiet resentment in her eyes that I had ignored for far too long. My voice barely came out when I said, "I'm not hungry." She shrugged and walked away without asking why. And I sat there alone, replaying the words that would haunt me for weeks. Words that would strip me down. Words that would break the man I used to be. In that moment, I learned a painful truth. The deepest wounds aren't caused by actions. They're caused by the thoughts the person you love secretly holds about you. And now, the fall had truly begun. People think heartbreak is loud. They think it comes with breaking glass, shouting matches, shattered walls, and echoing footsteps leaving the room. But the truth? Heartbreak is quiet. It seeps into your life the way fog creeps into an empty street. Soft, invisible, suffocating. You don't see it killing you until you realize you haven't taken a full breath in days. After the night she called me useless, something inside me loosened. Not dramatically, just a subtle shift. Like a screw somewhere deep in the foundation of my soul had finally cracked. I tried pretending nothing happened. Men like me are raised on silence. Hide pain, swallow hurt, smile, keep walking. But even silence has a weight. And mine began to leak through the cracks. The next day I woke up first, as I always had, as I always did, as I expected to for the rest of my life. But when I turned to look at her sleeping beside me, I didn't feel love. I felt distance. A cold, empty distance so wide it could have swallowed our whole marriage. It was like noticing a stranger in your bed, wearing the face of the woman you once loved. I went to the kitchen and made breakfast. Or tried to. The eggs burned. The toast broke. The tea tasted like metal. My hands weren't steady. They trembled like they were holding the weight of the whole world. When she walked in, she didn't say good morning. Instead, she frowned and said, "What happened to your face? Did you sleep badly? You look terrible." Terrible. Accurate. I smiled because men are taught to. "Didn't sleep much," I said. She didn't ask why. She didn't care why. She just brushed past me and sat with her phone, scrolling through the perfect lives of men I could never become. Work felt heavy that day. My thoughts were blurred. My manager asked if I was okay. Elite. Just tired. But I wasn't tired. I was breaking. Quietly. Every step, every breath, every decision felt wrong. Her voice echoed in my skull. Useless. 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 The word stuck to me like a stain I couldn't wash off. I stopped eating properly. Stopped sleeping. Stopped laughing. Stopped existing in ways that felt human. One evening, she came home wearing expensive perfume. Perfume I didn't buy. I asked softly, trying not to sound insecure, "Did you go somewhere?" She didn't even look at me. Just out. You wouldn't understand. How easily she dismissed me. How effortlessly she placed me below everything. Even below strangers outside this house. I watched her walk past me. And for a moment, I couldn't remember the woman I married. Where did she go? When did the warmth in her eyes die? When did I stop being someone worth loving? She stopped hugging me. Stopped talking to me. Stopped seeing me. I became air. Present but unnoticed. Breathing but forgotten. Nights were the cruelest. We would lie on the same bed, inches apart. Yet I felt miles away from her. I would listen to her breathe, while my own chest ached. Sometimes I wanted to reach out, touch her shoulder, hold her hand, and whisper, "Please don't give up on me." But my hand wouldn't move. Fear held it down. Fear that if I reached out, she would pull away, and that would break me beyond repair. One night, as she slept, I whispered into the darkness, "Maybe I am useless. That was the moment everything shifted. Because the moment you start believing the worst thing someone says about you, you begin to fall apart from the inside. Work felt pointless. Home felt suffocating. Life felt heavy. The man I once was, the man who loved, trusted, hoped, faded like smoke in cold air. What remained was a hollow shape, a shell, a man drowning while the world stood by, and didn't even notice he was underwater. She eventually noticed the change, not because she cared, but because it inconvenienced her. "You're acting weird lately," she said one evening. "Can you not bring this depressing energy into the house?" Depressing energy. If only she knew what her words had done. I wanted to scream. "You did this. You broke me. You made me hate the mirror." But the words never came. I swallowed them. Like always. All I said was, "I'm trying." She rolled her eyes. "Trying isn't enough. You need to become someone better. Someone richer. More successful. More exciting. More not me." Her expectations were chains. Every day they tightened. Every day they dragged me deeper. And just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Because life has a cruel rule. It breaks a man completely, right before giving him a reason to rise. And my breaking point, my darkest night, was only a chapter away. The night it happened, I didn't notice the hour. I was sitting alone in the living room, the faint glow of the television flickering across the walls. But I wasn't watching. I wasn't thinking. I was just existing. My life had become a quiet, suffocating routine. I woke, I worked, I waited, I tried. And every day, her words echoed louder in my mind than any success I could achieve. Useless. Dead weight. Disappointing. I had believed them. I had let them shape me. I had let her opinion define my existence. And that night, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. I had been living for her, not for myself. The thought hit me like lightning. It burned through my chest and reached the corners of my soul that I had long abandoned. Why am I trying to become someone she wants? I whispered to the darkness. Why am I giving away my life to someone who doesn't even see me? For the first time in months, I looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. The man staring back was tired. Eyes hollow. Skin pale. But in that hollow stare, I saw something else too. Potential. Strength. A spark that hadn't been extinguished. I clenched my fists. I could feel it in my chest, a new rhythm. A heartbeat not dictated by her approval. A pulse that belonged to me. That night, I made a silent vow. I will not live for her anymore. I will live for me. I will rebuild myself. And she will see the man I choose to become, not the man she wants me to be. The first step wasn't physical. It wasn't changing my job or my wardrobe. It was mental. It was deciding that her words no longer had power over me, that my value wasn't measured by her standards. I started small. I closed the door to her bedroom and locked away the pain. I turned off the TV and the constant distractions and sat in silence with my thoughts. Just me breathing, alive for the first time in what felt like forever. I realized I had been apologizing for existing. I had been shrinking myself to make her comfortable. I had been waiting for her validation instead of giving it to myself. And now, for the first time, I refused to wait. I started imagining my future, the man I could become. Stronger, confident, independent, respected, untouchable. I could see it clearly. A life not chained to her judgment. A life where my happiness wasn't contingent on her presence. And then the most liberating thought came. If she sees me again, she will see the man she tried to belittle, the man she called useless, and she will regret every cruel word. Not out of spite, not for revenge, but because my life would shine brighter than her contempt. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I simply awoke. For the first time in months, I felt alive, whole, capable, and I knew, deep down, that the path ahead would be long, painful and lonely, but worth every step, because this wasn't just about proving her wrong. It was about reclaiming myself. And with that realization, I finally felt the first spark of hope that would lead me to the man I was meant to become. The morning after my awakening, I didn't wait for anyone's permission to start again. I didn't need her recognition or the world's approval. For the first time in years, I waited for myself. I began with small changes, the kind that don't make noise, but shake something deep inside man. The first thing I took back was my body. Stress, sleepless nights, and her constant criticism had hollowed me out. I felt like a ghost in my own skin. So I started running before sunrise. The cold air bit into my lungs. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and every step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I had given up to her judgment. Then I turned to my mind. Books I once ignored became my fuel. Subjects that used to intimidate me suddenly felt like doors I was ready to open. I studied until late at night, absorbing knowledge like a starving man. Finally finding food. Work was no longer something I survived. It became a battlefield, and I walked into it every day with a newfound hunger. I stopped seeking approval, stopped waiting for praise, stopped hoping she would notice anything I did. I took risks, made bold moves, made decisions that the old version of me would have been too afraid to even consider. But the greatest weapon I found was silence. I didn't argue with her anymore, didn't explain, didn't defend myself. I let her talk, let her criticize, let her mock my efforts. And while she wasted her breath, I worked, I evolved, I sharpened every part of myself that she once dulled with her words. Slowly, people started noticing. My manager, my colleagues, friends who hadn't spoken to me in months. Something's different about you, they'd say. You look stronger. Strangers on the street glanced twice. I stood straighter, walked with more purpose, spoke with more certainty. And every time someone acknowledged the change, I felt a quiet fire grow inside me. Not to prove her wrong, but because I finally believed I deserved better than the man she convinced me I was. One night, I looked at her from across the room. She was scrolling through her phone, completely unaware that the man sitting 6 feet away was no longer hers to belittle. And for the first time ever, I felt nothing. No pain, no vaguing, no desperation, just clarity. I had grown. She hadn't. And the shift in energy was undeniable. I began setting goals she couldn't even imagine for me. Financial independence, physical strength, mental resilience, confidence she never believed I could have. A life that no longer revolved around her disappointment. Every triumph, big or small, added fuel to the fire. Every moment of progress whispered the same truth. I was no longer the man she used to break. That night, lying in bed beside her, I remembered her words. Useless, deadweight, disappointing. I smiled, quiet, sharp, certain. You called me useless, I whispered to myself. But I'm about to become unstoppable. Sleep didn't come that night, not because of pain, but because of possibility. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the future. I was hungry for it. My rise had begun. This was only the first step. And when she finally saw me, not the man she crushed, but the man I rebuilt myself into, she wouldn't recognize me. She would see the man she underestimated, the man she dismissed, the man she tried to break. And that was the quiet beginning of my revenge. When my rise began, it was subtle, but now it was undeniable. Every morning, I woke with a purpose stronger than pain. I wasn't the man who used to stare at the ceiling, wondering why he wasn't enough. No, I was becoming someone even I never imagined. A version of myself carved from fire and focus. My routine became sacred. Running at dawn wasn't just exercise anymore. It was meditation. It was the sound of my heartbeat saying, "You're alive. Keep moving." My body changed first. Chest broader, shoulders firmer, eyes sharper, clearer, like I could see through the walls that once trapped me. Then my mind transformed. Ideas I never dared share became the foundation of new ventures. I took risks that the old me would have talked himself out of. At work, things shifted too. I volunteered for challenges others avoided. I offered solutions without hesitation. I spoke with a confidence that made people turn and listen. Slowly, opportunities found me. People sought my input, my presence, my leadership. And yet, I remained silent at home. Not weak, not afraid, but detached. My silence wasn't submission. It was space, a growing distance she could no longer ignore. She noticed the changes. Of course she did. My clothes fit differently. My voice carried weight. My eyes no longer flinched when she threw sharp words. She would speak dismissively, and I would simply look at her, not hurt, not angry, just indifferent. And nothing terrifies a manipulative person more than indifference. One evening she asked, her voice laced with confusion, "Where have you been lately?" I didn't look up from the document in my hand. "Working," I said simply. But that wasn't the truth. I had been building myself, far beyond anything she could understand. The distance between us grew, and for the first time, she chased it. She asked more questions, looked more often, studied me like a puzzle she could no longer solve. By then, she was no longer the center of my world. She was just a chapter one had already outgrown. Success started showing on me. Not loud, not flashy, but in ways no one could ignore. Better posture, calm confidence, increased income, stronger presence, sharper focus, quiet belief in myself. I wasn't proving anything to her. I wasn't punishing her. I wasn't trying to win her back. I was simply rising. And my rise itself was becoming the revenge. One moment remains crystal clear in my mind. I had just returned from a meeting with an investor who believed in my ideas more than she ever believed in me. The deal went beyond expectation. Life-changing. I walked into the house calm and steady. She looked up from the couch, eyes scanning me with a look I hadn't seen in years. Curiosity mixed with something darker. Fear of losing control. "You look different," she said. I shrugged lightly. "I feel different." She opened her mouth to speak more, but I was already walking past her. Not dismissing, not hurting, just moving forward. Because I finally could. That night, lying in bed, I realized something profound. I no longer hated her. I no longer needed her. I no longer sought her approval. I had become a man she could no longer belittle. A man she could no longer define. A man growing beyond her reach. And the best part? My transformation was far from over. Tomorrow I would rise higher, faster, stronger, because the man she once called useless was becoming unstoppable. By now, I had learned a vital truth. Revenge doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need screaming or confrontation. It is quiet, patient, unstoppable. Every step I took, every decision I made, was a testament to the man I had chosen to become. Not for her, not for anyone, but for myself. My business ventures flourished. The ideas I had nurtured in silence became reality. People respected me, not because I demanded it, but because I had earned it. Financial freedom followed naturally. Strength, mental clarity, confidence, they came with it. I move through the world differently now, like a man who knows his worth, and no longer fears anyone's judgment. And of course, she noticed. She saw the subtle changes first. The watch I never bragged about. The confidence in my posture. The way I walked into rooms. As if the world already belonged to me. Then came the questions. "I don't understand. How did you do this? Who helped you?" "You changed." Her voice carried astonishment, almost panic. Not pride. Not joy. Fear. It was intoxicating. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because she was finally witnessing the consequences of her own words. Every glance she gave me was filled with curiosity mixed with regret. Every attempt to engage with me felt forced, desperate, and too late. I realized that true revenge was not in confrontation. It was in thriving beyond the person who had tried to diminish you. One evening, she approached me, careful, almost timid, and said, "You've really become someone else." I didn't think you could." I looked at her, my gaze calm, unyielding. The man she once thought useless was staring back at her. "I've become me," I said simply. "Not who you wanted me to be. Not who you tried to define. Just me." She faltered. I saw the weight of realization press down on her. Every cruel word she had said, every insult, every dismissive comment, had only been fuel for the man she now feared. And in that moment, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace, because her regret was not my weapon. My weapon had been my own transformation. Everything else, her shock, her fear, her desperation, was merely a reflection of my strength. That night, I walked past her, without looking back. The silence between us was louder than any argument. I understood something profound. The greatest revenge is living well. And as I lay in bed later, feeling the quiet power of my rise, I whispered to myself, the man she tried to destroy is now unstoppable. And she knows it. Tomorrow would be another day of growth, another day of proving that her judgment had no power over my life. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. And she had no place in the world I was building, except as a witness to my success. One evening, she approached me, careful, almost timid, and said, "You've really become someone else. I didn't think you could." I looked at her, my gaze calm, unyielding. The man she once thought useless was staring back at her. "I've become me," I said simply. "Not who you wanted me to be, not who you tried to define, just me." She faltered. I saw the weight of realization press down on her. Every cruel word she had said, every insult, every dismissive comment, had only been fuel for the man she now feared. And in that moment, I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace, because her regret was not my weapon. My weapon had been my own transformation. Everything else, her shock, her fear, her desperation, was merely a reflection of my strength. That night, I walked past her, without looking back. The silence between us was louder than any argument. I understood something profound. The greatest revenge is living well. And as I lay in bed later, feeling the quiet power of my rise, I whispered to myself, the man she tried to destroy is now unstoppable. And she knows it. Tomorrow would be another day of growth, another day of proving that her judgment had no power over my life. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. And she had no place in the world I was building, except as a witness to my success. She had tried to belittle me, to make me doubt myself, to shape me into someone I wasn't. And yet, the man she once called useless stood taller, stronger, more alive than she could ever imagine. I let the moment stretch a little longer, not out of cruelty, but out of recognition that this truth, this victory, was mine. She turned away quietly, her shoulders heavy with what she had lost, and I knew she understood. The man she underestimated was gone, replaced by someone she could never control. I didn't feel pride. I didn't feel malice. I felt peace, because I had reclaimed myself. I had healed. I had grown. And the world, my world, was finally mine. That night, I closed my office door, sat back, and whispered to myself, some victories don't need a battle. The days after our confrontation were quiet, not awkward, not tense, just still, like the world had paused to let me breathe. After years of chaos, hurt, and doubt, for the first time in a long time, I looked at my reflection in the mirror, without judgment, without fear, without longing for someone else's approval. I saw a man who had been broken. I saw a man who had been called useless. I saw a man who had loved, lost, and rebuilt himself, stronger than before, whole in ways words cannot capture. Life didn't suddenly change. There were no miracles, no grand announcements, just mornings where I woke up, feeling light. Even mornings when the house was quiet. Even when I was alone, I felt alive. I began to fill my world with things I had neglected. Friends who uplifted me, work that challenged me, hobbies I had abandoned, travel to places I'd only dreamed of. And every time I looked at the sky, or felt the wind on my face, or heard my own laughter echo in empty rooms, I realized something simple, yet profound. I don't need anyone to validate my life. I'm enough for myself. She never returned the way I thought she might. And I didn't wait, because I had learned the most important truth. Happiness cannot come from someone else's approval. It comes from the quiet, steady acknowledgement of your own worth. Sometimes I still remember the words she once said. Useless, deadweight, disappointing. And I smile, not with malice, but with gratitude, grateful that I had been pushed, broken and challenged, into becoming the man I am today. I walk through life lighter now. The shadows of doubt no longer haunt me. I love freely, myself, my work, my passions, without expectation, without fear. And though the past still lingers, it no longer defines me. It is a chapter once survived, a lesson I embraced, a stepping stone to strength. I become a man who stands tall, Not because anyone else notices, but because I finally see myself. And in that quiet strength, I've discovered the most powerful truth of all. In the end, some goodbyes are blessings in disguise. I close my eyes, breathe in the calm, and whisper to the night, I am enough. I am whole. I am free.